Breaking, Dominik Mysterio just got betrayed by his own Judgment Day family and I'm absolutely furious about what happened. I am completely shaking with rage right now because what just happened on Monday Night Raw is the most devastating, heartbreaking, and shocking betrayal in Judgment Day's history. Dominik Mysterio, the man who sacrificed his relationship with his father Rey Mysterio, who turned his back on the WWE Universe, who gave everything to Judgment Day, just got stabbed in the back by the very people he trusted most. And I am livid because Dominik spent years proving his loyalty to this faction, years defending them against everyone, years putting Judgment Day above his own family, and now when Dominik needed them most, they turned on him like he was nothing. And here's what's making me absolutely enraged: Dominik Mysterio has been the most loyal member of Judgment Day since he joined. While Rhea Ripley was off doing her own thing, while Damian Priest was questioning the group's direction, while Finn Balor was playing political games, Dominik was the one constant who never wavered in his commitment to Judgment Day. Dominik defended this faction against his own father. He became estranged from his family for Judgment Day. He became one of the most hated wrestlers in WWE because of his loyalty to this group. And his reward for that unwavering loyalty? Getting betrayed and thrown aside like garbage when a new threat decided they wanted his spot in the faction. But I need to know from you right now, are you as furious as I am that Judgment Day betrayed Dominik after everything he sacrificed for them, or do you think Dominik somehow deserved this betrayal? Should Dominik seek revenge against all of Judgment Day, or should he try to win back their trust? Is this betrayal the beginning of Judgment Day's complete destruction, or will they become even stronger without Dominik? Tell me right now in the comments, because what I'm about to reveal about who this new threat is that's replacing Dominik, why Judgment Day threw Dominik out, the brutal way they turned on him, and what this means for Dominik's future is going to leave you absolutely stunned and furious. Let me take you back through the past few weeks because there were warning signs that Dominik Mysterio's position in Judgment Day was becoming precarious, but nobody, including Dominik himself, saw this betrayal coming. About a month ago, subtle tensions started appearing in Judgment Day segments. When Dominik would talk, other members would exchange glances. When Dominik suggested strategies, they'd be quickly dismissed. When Dominik had matches, the rest of Judgment Day seemed less enthusiastic about supporting him than they used to be. At the time, fans thought this was just natural friction within a faction that had been together for a long time. Every stable goes through periods where members aren't perfectly aligned. Nobody thought it meant anything serious. But looking back now, it's clear that Judgment Day was already planning to replace Dominik. They were already looking for his successor. They were already setting up his betrayal. Quick question: did you notice the warning signs that Judgment Day was turning on Dominik? Tell me what specific moment made you suspicious. 2 weeks ago, there was a crucial moment that should have been a red flag for Dominik. During a tag team match, Dominik was in trouble in the ring and called for a tag. Damian Priest was standing on the apron but hesitated before tagging in. It was just a 1-second hesitation, but it was there. After the match, which Judgment Day won, Dominik tried to address the hesitation with Priest backstage. "Hey man, what was that about? Why did you hesitate to tag in?" Priest claimed it was nothing, "I was just timing my entrance, don't read into it." But Dominik's expression showed he wasn't entirely convinced. For the first time, doubt was creeping into Dominik's mind about his place in Judgment Day. Last week, Rhea Ripley had a backstage conversation with Dominik that now seems incredibly ominous in hindsight. Rhea said, "You know we love you. You're part of this family. But sometimes families grow and change. Sometimes new people come in and dynamics shift. You understand that, right?" At the time, Dominik nodded and agreed, not realizing that Rhea was essentially preparing him for his betrayal. Rhea was softening the blow in advance, trying to make Dominik understand that his removal from Judgment Day was inevitable. These warning signs were all building to what happened on Raw, and the actual betrayal was even more brutal than anyone could have anticipated. Monday Night Raw opened with Judgment Day, Finn Balor, Damian Priest, Rhea Ripley, and Dominik Mysterio all in the ring together making their typical entrance. The crowd was booing them as usual. Everything seemed normal. Finn grabbed a microphone and started cutting a promo about Judgment Day's dominance and how nobody on the Raw roster could challenge them. Standard heel faction talk that we've heard dozens of times before. But then Finn said something that immediately caught everyone's attention. "However, Judgment Day isn't standing still. We're not satisfied with what we've accomplished. We're always looking to improve. We're always looking to bring in the best talent. And tonight, Judgment Day is welcoming a new member." The crowd's reaction shifted from boos to confused curiosity. A new member? Who could it be? Dominik's face showed he was just as confused as everyone else. This was clearly news to him as well. Dominik looked at Rhea, at Priest, at Finn, trying to understand what was happening. Who did you think the new member was going to be when Finn made that announcement? Give me your guess in the comments. And then the music hit. A theme song that WWE fans immediately recognized but hadn't heard on Raw in months. The arena erupted with a mixture of shock, excitement, and understanding of what was about to happen. Note, I'm going to use the new threat as a placeholder since you didn't specify who the actual person is. You can replace this with whichever wrestler makes sense for your specific storyline. It could be someone returning from injury, a NXT call-up, someone from another brand, etc. The new threat walked out from backstage looking absolutely dangerous. They had the look of someone who was ready to dominate Raw and cement their position as a major player in WWE. The new threat walked down the ramp slowly, confidently, making eye contact with each member of Judgment Day. When they reached the ring, they entered and stood in the center, looking at all of Judgment Day with a smile that said, "I'm here to take over." Dominik's expression was pure confusion and concern. He still didn't understand what was happening or what this meant for him. Finn Balor walked over to the new threat and shook their hand, welcoming them to Judgment Day. Damian Priest did the same. Rhea Ripley gave the new threat a hug and whispered something in their ear that made the new threat smile menacingly. And then all three of them, Finn, Priest, and Rhea, turned and looked at Dominik. The crowd gasped because they suddenly understood what was about to happen. Dominik was being replaced. Dominik stood there, still processing, still hoping this wasn't what it appeared to be. "Guys, what's going on? Who is this?" Finn spoke. "DOM, you've been a valuable member of Judgment Day. You helped us through some tough times. We appreciate everything you've done. But Judgment Day is evolving, and that evolution means we need someone more dangerous, more skilled, more marketable than you." Those words, "more marketable than you," cut deep. This wasn't just about wrestling ability. This was about Dominik not being valuable enough as a commodity. Dominik's face showed hurt and betrayal. "Are you serious right now? After everything I've done for this group? After I chose you over my own father? When did you realize Dominik was being kicked out of Judgment Day? Tell me the exact moment it clicked for you." Rhea stepped forward, and what she said next was even more devastating than Finn's words. "DOM, sweetie, you have to understand. This isn't personal. This is business. The new threat brings things to Judgment Day that you simply can't offer. We need to make this change to stay on top." The casual way Rhea delivered this devastating news, calling Dominik sweetie while destroying his world, was cruel in a way that showed just how little Dominik actually meant to her. Dominik looked at Damian Priest, his last hope for an allied. "Priest? Come on, man. We've been through so much together. You're really going to let them do this?" Priest looked genuinely conflicted for a moment. You could see part of him felt bad about what was happening, but then Priest shook his head and said, "It's already done, DOM. The decision was made. You need to accept it and move on." That was the final betrayal. Even Priest, who seemed most sympathetic to Dominik, was choosing Judgment Day's evolution over their friendship. What happened next crossed the line from emotional betrayal to physical assault, and it's the part that makes me most furious about this entire situation. Dominik, realizing he'd been completely abandoned by the people he considered family, tried to leave the ring with whatever dignity he had left. He started walking toward the ropes to exit, but the new threat grabbed Dominik from behind and spun him around. The new threat got in Dominik's face and said something, we couldn't hear what, but based on Dominik's reaction, it was something vicious. Dominik, showing the fire that had been absent from his recent performances, pushed the new threat away and threw a punch. Dominik was trying to defend himself and his position in Judgment Day, but it was 3 against 1, 4 if you count the new threat. Finn, Priest, and the new threat immediately attacked Dominik, while Rhea watched from the corner with a satisfied smirk on her face. The attack was brutal and prolonged. They weren't just removing Dominik from the group, they were destroying him to make a statement. If you were in Dominik's position, would you have fought back or just left peacefully? Tell me what you would have done. Finn hit Dominik with multiple kicks and strikes. Priest lifted Dominik up and slammed him down with a devastating move. The new threat added their own signature offense, showing Dominik exactly why Judgment Day chose them as his replacement. The crowd was booing loudly, not because they suddenly liked Dominik, he's still a heel in most fans' eyes, but because the nature of the attack was so vicious and unfair. Security and referees rushed to the ring to try to break up the attack, but Judgment Day had already made their point. Dominik was left laying in the middle of the ring, bloodied and beaten, while his former family stood over him celebrating their new member. The visual of Dominik, alone, hurt, betrayed, lying in that ring while the people he sacrificed everything for celebrated his destruction was absolutely heartbreaking regardless of how you feel about Dominik as a character. After commercial break, cameras found DOMINIK Mysterio in the trainer's room receiving medical attention. His face was cut above the eye. His ribs were being wrapped. He was clearly in physical pain, but the emotional pain was even more evident on his face. A backstage interviewer cautiously approached Dominik and asked, "DOM, can you give us your reaction to what just happened with Judgment Day?" Dominik looked up with tears in his eyes, whether from physical pain or emotional devastation, we couldn't tell. His response was powerful. "They said it wasn't personal. They said it was business. But how is it not personal when these were the people I chose over my own father? These were the people I defended when the entire world turned against them." These were the people I gave everything to. Dominik's voice cracked with emotion as he continued, I turned my back on Rey Mysterio for Judgment Day. I became estranged from my family for Judgment Day. I let myself be hated by millions of people for Judgment Day. And this is how they repay that loyalty? By replacing me with the first new shiny toy that catches their attention. What's the biggest betrayal you've ever experienced? Can you relate to what Dominik is feeling? Tell me in the comments. The interviewer asked, what are you going to do now? Are you going to seek revenge against Judgment Day? Dominik's expression changed from sadness to something darker, revenge? Oh, I'm going to do more than just get revenge. I'm going to destroy Judgment Day. I'm going to expose them for the disloyal, backstabbing hypocrites they are. And I'm going to make sure they regret the day they decided I wasn't good enough for their precious faction. This was a new Dominik Mysterio we were seeing, not the cocky heir to Judgment Day, not the bratty son rejecting his father. This was someone who had been pushed to his absolute limit and was ready to burn everything down. Later in the show, cameras caught up with Rey Mysterio backstage. Rey had obviously heard about what happened to his son and reporters wanted his reaction. Rey's response was complicated and showed the difficult position he's in. As a father, my heart breaks seeing Dominik hurt like that. No parent wants to see their child in pain, even when that child has made choices you don't agree with. Part of me wants to go comfort him and tell him everything will be okay. But as a competitor and as someone Dominik betrayed, I also feel like, this is what happens when you align yourself with people who don't have your best interests at heart. I tried to warn Dominik about Judgment Day. I tried to tell him they would use him and discard him when he was no longer useful. But he wouldn't listen. He chose them over family. Do you think Rey should help Dominik now? Or should he let Dominik deal with the consequences of his choices? This is tough, tell me what Rey should do. Rey continued, so I don't know what the right answer is. Do I help him even though he turned his back on me? Do I let him suffer the consequences of his choices? Do I use this as an opportunity to bring him back to the family? The interviewer asked, if Dominik came to you right now and asked for your help against Judgment Day, what would you say? Rey thought for a long moment before responding, I'd say we need to have a conversation first. A real conversation about choices, consequences, loyalty, and what family actually means. And depending on how that conversation goes, maybe we could work together. But Dominik would need to show me he's learned from this and genuinely wants to make things right. This set up the possibility of a Rey and Dominik reunion, which would be incredibly compelling storytelling. But it also made clear that reunion wouldn't be automatic or easy. Dominik would need to earn his way back into his father's good graces. Later in Raw, Judgment Day had a backstage segment where the new threat cut a promo explaining why they joined the faction and what they bring to the group. The new threat said, Dominik Mysterio was deadweight holding Judgment Day back. He was riding on the coattails of more talented wrestlers and using his family name to stay relevant. But Judgment Day doesn't need charity cases. Judgment Day needs killers. And that's exactly what I am. I bring credibility to this faction. I bring legitimacy. I bring the kind of star power that Dominik could never provide. And most importantly, I bring the ruthlessness necessary to take Judgment Day to the next level. Finn Balor added, this is what evolution looks like. Judgment Day was great with Dominik, but we'll be legendary with the new threat. We made the hard decision because it was the right decision. The promo was designed to make fans hate the new threat and the rest of Judgment Day even more, and it succeeded. The arrogance and dismissiveness toward Dominik's contributions made them incredibly unsympathetic. Do you think the new threat actually makes Judgment Day better, or was keeping Dominik the smarter choice? Give me your analysis. Throughout Raw, various wrestlers were interviewed about their reactions to Dominik's betrayal by Judgment Day, and their responses revealed interesting perspectives. Some wrestlers basically said Dominik deserved this because of how he treated others, especially his father. Karma's a expletive. Dominik spent years being disloyal and disrespectful. Now he knows how it feels to be on the receiving end. Some wrestlers viewed this as just the nature of wrestling factions. Factions betray members all the time. It's part of the business. Dominik should have seen it coming and had a backup plan. Some wrestlers, even ones who don't particularly like Dominik, thought Judgment Day's betrayal crossed a line. I don't like the kid, but nobody deserves to be beaten down by their own group like that. It was excessive. Some wrestlers saw this as potentially the best thing that could happen to Dominik's career. Now he can finally step out of Judgment Day's shadow and prove what he can do on his own. This could make him a star if he handles it right. The diversity of perspective shows how complex this storyline is and how there's no single right way to view what happened. The subtitle of this storyline is Judgment Day in Chaos, and that chaos is real despite Judgment Day's attempt to project strength after betraying Dominik. According to backstage reports and subtle hints in later segments, not everyone in Judgment Day is 100% comfortable with how Dominik's removal was handled. Damian Priest in particular seems conflicted. In a brief backstage moment, Priest was shown looking at old photos of Judgment Day with Dominik, suggesting he has regrets about the betrayal even if he won't admit it publicly. There are also reports of tension between the new threat and other Judgment Day members. The new threat is trying to establish dominance and take a leadership role, which conflicts with Finn Balor's position as the de facto leader of the group. Rhea Ripley seems unbothered by any of this chaos, which makes her the most ruthless member of Judgment Day. Rhea clearly believes that causing pain and chaos is necessary for Judgment Day's success. This internal chaos suggests that Judgment Day might not survive this evolution intact. The betrayal of Dominik might be the first domino falling in Judgment Day's eventual complete destruction. Do you think Judgment Day will implode, or will they come out of this stronger? What's your prediction for the faction's future? The most interesting question is, where does Dominik Mysterio go from here? What's his path forward after being betrayed by the only family he had left in WWE? Dominik could approach his father, apologize for his years of disrespect and betrayal, and ask for Rey's help in getting revenge against Judgment Day. This leads to a father-son team working together to destroy the faction that hurt them both. This is the most emotional option and would give fans the catharsis of seeing the Mysterios reunite and work together after years of conflict. Dominik could refuse to ask anyone for help and wage a one-man war against Judgment Day. This would be about Dominik proving he doesn't need Judgment Day or anyone else, he can be a star on his own. This option allows Dominik to develop as an individual character rather than always being defined by his relationships with others. Dominik could form alliances with other wrestlers who have been victimized by Judgment Day in the past. This creates a coalition united by their common enemy. This option allows multiple wrestlers to be featured in meaningful storylines and creates interesting dynamics as former enemies unite against a common threat. Dominik could use this betrayal as an excuse to become even more heel and even more vicious. He could argue that Judgment Day's betrayal proved that loyalty and trust are weaknesses, and he'll never be vulnerable again. This is the most surprising option because fans might expect Dominik to become sympathetic after being betrayed, but having him double down on being a terrible person would be unexpected. Which path do you want to see Dominik take? Rank these 4 options in order of preference in the comments. This storyline with Dominik and Judgment Day exists within the larger context of WWE's current creative direction and faction dynamics. WWE has several major factions right now, the Bloodline, in various forms, Judgment Day, and potentially others forming. The dynamics between and within these factions creates rich storytelling opportunities. Dominik's betrayal by Judgment Day could be the catalyst for larger faction warfare. If Dominik builds alliances with other wrestlers to fight Judgment Day, and those wrestlers have their own allies, we could end up with a multi-faction war that dominates Raw for months. This is the kind of complex, interconnected storytelling that WWE excels at when they commit to it. Every wrestler has clear motivations, every alliance has meaning, and every match has stakes that matter to the overall narrative. One of the most interesting aspects of this storyline is the character development opportunity it creates for Dominik Mysterio. Dominik has been essentially the same character since joining Judgment Day, cocky, arrogant, hiding behind the faction, disrespectful to his father, and somewhat one-dimensional as a heel. But this betrayal forces Dominik to evolve. He can't hide behind Judgment Day anymore. He can't rely on their protection or their reputation. He has to figure out who Dominik Mysterio is as an individual, separate from his faction and separate from his famous father's legacy. This is Dominik's opportunity to show depth, vulnerability, and complexity as a character. If WWE handles it correctly, this could be the storyline that transforms Dominik from Rey's son in Judgment Day to Dominik Mysterio, legitimate WWE star. The key is that WWE needs to commit to this character development rather than rushing through it or treating it as a temporary storyline before putting Dominik right back where he was before. Do you think this betrayal will actually change Dominik's character long-term, or will he be back to his old self in a few months? Be realistic in your assessment. Here's an aspect of this storyline that people don't talk about enough, the merchandising implications. Dominik Mysterio sells merchandise. Not as much as top stars, but he has a following and people buy his shirts and other products. That merchandise prominently featured Judgment Day branding and imagery. Now that Dominik is out of Judgment Day, WWE has to make decisions about his merch. Do they keep selling Judgment Day merch with Dominik on it? Do they create new Dominik merch that reflects his post-Judgment Day character? Do they temporarily pull his merch until his character direction is clear? These business decisions affect WWE's revenue and also send signals to fans about how seriously WWE is taking Dominik's new direction. If WWE quickly produces new high-quality Dominik merch, it signals they're committed to Dominik as a solo act. If they just pull his merch and don't replace it, it signals they're not confident in Dominik's solo drawing power. Rhea Ripley's role in betraying Dominik is particularly interesting because it connects this storyline to WWE's women's division. Rhea and Dominik had a pseudo-romantic dynamic in Judgment Day that WWE played with but never fully committed to. Rhea was portrayed as the dominant force who kind of protected and mentored Dominik. Rhea being so cold and ruthless in betraying Dominik shows that their relationship was never what Dominik thought it was. Rhea used Dominik just like the rest of Judgment Day did, and now that he's no longer useful, she has no problem discarding him. This could lead to interesting interactions between Rhea and other women on the roster who might feel sympathetic toward Dominik or might want to exploit his vulnerable state for their own purposes. The intersection of this storyline with the women's division creates additional storytelling possibilities that WWE can explore. One fascinating aspect of this storyline is how live crowds have been reacting to Dominik after his betrayal. In the immediate aftermath, crowds were somewhat sympathetic to Dominik despite years of booing him as a heel. There's something about betrayal storylines that automatically generates sympathy for the victim, even when that victim was previously despised. But that sympathy isn't universal. Some fans are still booing Dominik, viewing this as karma for how he treated his father and others. Some fans are chanting "You deserve it" during Dominik segments, which is harsh but reflects their feelings about his past behavior. The mixed reactions create an interesting dynamic where WWE can push Dominik as either a babyface seeking redemption or a heel who's even more vicious after being betrayed. The crowd reactions support either direction. How are you reacting to Dominik now? More sympathetic, still hate him, or something in between? Tell me honestly. Dominik Mysterio being betrayed and replaced in Judgment Day is one of the most dramatic and consequential storylines Raw has produced this year. It forces character development for Dominik. It creates chaos within Judgment Day. It opens the door for a Rey and Dominik reunion. It introduces a new threat to the Raw roster. And it generates the kind of emotional investment that makes wrestling compelling. Whether you love Dominik or hate him, whether you think he deserved this or not, you care about what happens next. And that caring is what makes wrestling special. The execution of Dominik's betrayal was brutal and effective. Now WWE needs to follow through with meaningful storytelling that gives Dominik a compelling path forward and makes this betrayal feel like a pivotal moment rather than just a temporary shock. Dominik Mysterio's world has been destroyed. Now we get to watch him rebuild or watch him burn everything down in revenge. Did Dominik deserve to be betrayed by Judgment Day, or was this unfair after all his loyalty? Should Rey Mysterio help his son get revenge, or let Dominik handle this alone? Who do you think the new threat should be? Since we used a placeholder, tell me who would make the best Dominik replacement. Will Judgment Day be better or worse without Dominik? What should Dominik's next move be? Revenge? Redemption? Something else? Do you think this is the beginning of Judgment Day's complete destruction? Should Dominik turn babyface after this betrayal, or become an even more vicious heel? What match do you want to see first, Dominik versus the new threat, Dominik versus Finn, or Rey and Dominik versus Judgment Day? Is this the best thing that could have happened to Dominik's character development? How long should WWE wait before having Dominik get meaningful revenge? Smash that like button if you're emotionally invested in Dominik's storyline. Subscribe to Wrestling Newsletter for continued coverage of Judgment Day's chaos. Turn notifications on so you don't miss our analysis of Dominik's revenge. This is Wrestling Newsletter, and Dominik Mysterio's wrestling life will never be the same after this devastating betrayal.